Are you recording video?
I'm recording video.
Whoa!
Hello, welcome to our YouTube video of our recording of a podcast.
Wow, so many layers.
It's deep. It runs deep.
Oh yeah, just for video people, this is another Star Trek shirt, but it's from Shield of Tomorrow, the Geek and Sundry Star Trek RPG show. It's Lark's Cream Soda. Set taste buds to yum.
Just for people who don't know, does that show live somewhere else now?
Well, in a new iteration, it's called Clear Skies, and it's over on Q Times, which is a Twitch channel.
Queue.
Indeed.
Times.
Are you a new character on that, or is it the same characters?
Nope. We're all new characters, and it is a new sort of universe. It's a different time period than Shield of Tomorrow in Star Trek.
Shield of Tomorrow was when? Like
Stardate 4.4.121.
Yeah, it was the end of the Dominion War, so like DS9, end of DS9 era, and
so
this is further. Mm-hmm, and this is further even than that down the line, which is the Star Trek Online timeline.
Which I'm just learning about. Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. Oh right.
Yeah, I just ended the Romulan Riemann storyline.
So
I thought that Star Trek was a post-time society where everything was in a neutral timeline because time travel's been discovered.
So time
not to that extent.
Ask the traveler.
Whoa. In Star Trek Online, you can actually visit an NPC from Shield of Tomorrow, and you can visit the USS Sally Ride,
That's
which
so
is
cool.
the ship.
That.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
And a fun fact, this is spoilers for Clear Skies, but we may have run into a version of that NPC in our universe.
I love it.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're recording on all the things.
Right.
Snap?
I'm now recording on audio. Yes, we can snap on.
By where I meant me.
1, 2, 3. All right, well done. Becca, do you want to cold open this one?
Jake, I'm sorry.
Why?
It's not my fault. I know. You got 32 points less on your entrance exam to get into the other exam.
I just didn't expect you to apologize for my failures.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It is a 3,000 point exam, and I only missed it by 32. So it's like 1%.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Oh, Becca, if you weren't so cute, you would be obnoxious.
Oh, it's so funny you say that. Me, just like Wesley, we get away with it. Doesn't mean we're not obnoxious.
Well, that's right. It's coming of age. Oh,
Jake, Xander thinks I'm cute.
I did hear it.
Message received.
Yeah. Thanks for checking in. Well, that's right. It's coming of age. It's the classic first season episode where Wesley Crusher faces the Starfleet Academy entrance exam. And meanwhile, there's like a really intense interrogation of the crew from somebody from the... One second. Motherfuckers.
They knew we started.
Yeah. Back it up.
Beep. I'm not cutting this for YouTube. So
Meanwhile, up above on the Enterprise, there is a very intense investigation from someone from the Inspector General's office.
What a creepoid. I hate that guy.
Remick? What's his name?
Remick.
Dexter Remick.
Yeah. Oh, Dexter. Yeah.
Real easy to say.
Well, I was interested why they made him a lieutenant commander because it always felt weird that he was like bossing everybody around under rank a little bit, which I guess is what made him a little bit of an impotent character in a way, and also kind of made the audience feel like, oh, the Enterprise crew's got this guy under control in some way. He's just annoying.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on rank. It's sort of like when people say dates in that information, I just am like, not necessary, and immediately delete it as I hear it.
Because you don't think time exists in Star Trek, right?
That's right. Correct. I don't believe in time, period, or free will.
It's a flat circle.
Yeah. But I did acknowledge the rank of these bell bottoms Wesley has in his costume.
Yeah.
They're legit.
Actually, this the last like 2 or 3 episodes, I never really noticed the pants, specifically like the cuffs of the pants before. They sort of flare out and they have the piping of whatever department color they're in. And it's really cool.
Oh, I didn't notice the piping.
They have
That's
piping?
Like Data's piped in gold and Captain's is piped in red. It's really interesting.
So I
Wow.
recognize this because it is kind of a throwback to the original series movies when they had kind of those naval uniforms that have like the crossover jacket and then the lapel that has their rank insignia on it.
Right.
They're also have like flared bell-bottomy kind of ends on top of their boots.
Very 70s. Yeah.
Well, this episode had some excellent costuming, and even though we're not particularly fans of Admiral Quinn, okay, I did take a note of that rank because he has a super sweet dress uniform that I wanted to remember what rank I'm gonna get mine. It's got that crossover lapel with a real gold red outline because I don't know, anybody Captain Picard and above gets red.
Oh, well, red is command. So if you're on the track for like, I want to be a captain someday, or I want to be in a command position.
That feels like you got to get through a different rank first. That feels like you're skipping a step.
Yeah, you can. You can start out in like engineering or something in yellow, or security even, or science. Other captains have been scientists and things like that before. Picard here, we even see before we saw a call for him to come out and be an archaeologist and not be on the Enterprise. Now we're seeing this call for him to return to the Academy as a teacher or an instructor. Because we all know Captain Picard loves kids.
Commandant, I think.
Wait, we can't get there, people, because right now all we know at the beginning of the episode is there's an investigation of the Enterprise.
Right. Dun, dun, dun.
Whenever somebody comes in from the transporter and just says, you know what, we have important things to do and we can't tell you about it, we all know that's trouble. That's happened like several times in the first season already. Why isn't the crew just more like trying to shut that down right at the outset?
Because can we just we're all going to hear, let's just spit it out, transport room. Also, they walked out of the transport room very confidently, so this look could be exchanged between the crew members. Like, wait, what the fuck? But really, how do they know where they're going on the ship? Are all of starships of this level exactly the same layout?
Kind of, Galaxy class, yeah.
The class of the ship. So they would know sort of where it's the Galaxy class.
I still can't hear you, Xander.
Oh, really?
Really?
That's why I was making faces to entertain the people watching this video.
Oh,
something happened to your microphone.
Becca,
to my
do you not hear us?
Oh, shit. It's me. It's my ears.
It might be you.
Don't worry.
We hear each other.
Your fault. Hold on.
It's okay. We'll get through this.
Today is the day. I have so many great anecdotes about finding yourself around in the Galaxy class.
I'm going to have to stop the recording.
No, you don't have to stop. Oh, it's because you need to reconnect.
I can't hear.
It's okay. Just stop the recording, then restart it. But keep your audio running. You can't even hear me, can you?
Well, no, I can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, welcome back.
Sorry, I acted like you were the one wrong. Hold on.
It's fine. I could have been.
For the record, we'll just blame Xander
Ryan, say
on
something
this.
again?
It was on me. Oh, here I am. Oh, that looked disappointed.
She just didn't like what you said.
Right. Sorry. I'll send it back to the writer's room.
My output in Audition is preventing me from hearing you guys through. I know.
Please, was it not plugged in?
No, not super hot.
No, nothing. Check.
Something changed.
Test. Can you hear? Oh no, she's seizing.
Oh God, Wesley,
help
just
her.
hang out in the empty holodeck.
Help her.
Don't put a program in. You could be literally anywhere.
What are you
just
doing?
hang out.
What's this? Is this the program you've been working on?
Get off Twitter, Wesley.
Hey, sorry, I interrupted your train of thought. What was happening?
Oh, are we back?
You good?
What was I?
We were talking about finding your way around a galaxy-class starship.
Yeah. Yes. And also, to your point, Jake, that at this point, the crew should be sort of fed up with this sort of thing. I think that's why we see this hair trigger temper on Riker, who's like, we've been through this before. Just tell us now in front of everybody, we need communication. Like, this doesn't work.
If Picard wasn't there, Riker would straight up have chokehold Remick, for sure.
And part of it is like this weird 90s...
What?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
It's a day. It's a day, everybody. Okay.
What did you say, Becca?
I said we're outlining those.
Oh, yeah. I probably actually shouldn't say chokehold. If Picard wasn't there, Riker would have straight up punched Remick, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And I think this goes to... But there's this sort of weird, like, 90s machismo sort of bullshit that happens, especially in this sort of time period where these characters are written to be like the man's man. It's like, oh, I'll fly off the handle if I'm not reined in by somebody. And and we even see the boys will be boys thing later on too with the shuttle escape. Anyway.
Let's talk about this scene by scene. So we're on the ship, and this Remick guy that is so annoying. He's the worst. I mean,
punchable.
Like, seeking something wrong is all we know. And Geordi says, just having that guy around makes me feel guilty, which is such a gross feeling. Absolutely. Of like, he's just he's seeking something evil. And I wrote, this prick is alt-right for sure. Because he's asking, has the captain ever falsified a log? And that's the scene that you were talking about where Riker gets really in his face and aggressive.
Yeah. Riker stands above him when he's about to be interviewed with a pose that's very Superman. Like, it felt like he was
Wonder
auditioning for or Wonder Woman. Okay, he's auditioning for either of those roles. It definitely felt like he was trying to make a physical presence. I was very kind of surprised by that, but
Remick acknowledges it because he says, my investigation could take even longer if you don't want to sit. It's like, oh my God. Then cafeteria over pudding. If my investigation will be longer if you don't give me what I want. Get out of here, dude.
Right. But then when he does cooperate, we get that Riker seat mount, the first of many to come.
Riker maneuver?
It is a Riker maneuver, but it's not the Riker maneuver quite yet. We see the inklings of it with this.
It's a proto maneuver.
He sort of like vaults over this thing. And I had heard the rumor is that Jonathan Frakes had a bad back, and so when he was asked to sit in scenes, he would sort of put his leg over the top of the end of the chair rather than contorting to sit into the chair.
Good thing chairs are so much smaller than he is that he can do that with ease.
And then it started to look cool.
So our B plot is at the Academy, and you guys teased me last week that we'd get to see what Starfleet Academy is like and how it's so similar and different from Hogwarts.
Well, here's the thing. I am such a sucker for this trope. We're having an academy test and only one of you can get in and the test is a secret. I love that. It's a very anime. It's very, I don't know what it is about it.
I'm so angry about it. Why can only one of these very qualified students be able to get into the academy? They're
it's super
hurting
competitive
themselves because all four of these cadets are freaking amazing. Why wouldn't they take all four if they all pass a certain threshold? This doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, we've seen plenty of red shirts die who were clearly did not pass this test.
Right?
But that's the thing. I think we're getting towards the end with the lessons, but the overall thing is that the points didn't matter. It's where these people are at to become Starfleet cadets. That's what they're trying to do.
Whose line is it anyway?
Right.
But wait, what? So Mordok was further along. Why? We didn't see any of Mordok's tests.
He had taken the test many, many times before. He had done something that Wesley recognized as a significant achievement, and he was surprised that Mordok had not yet been inducted into Starfleet. And then we later find out that he's the first of his race, which I wrote down starts with a B, to
Benzite.
be inducted. A Benzite, which is like, well, what? Why are we discriminating a bit against Benzite? He's the first one. How long has Starfleet been around?
Well, that's the thing is that new races are joining the Federation all the time, and it takes a while for a race in the Federation to get sort of in the culture enough for their kids to want to be part of Starfleet. You know what I
You
mean?
have to learn to
It's just-
accept his constant vaping.
Right. I did write down that I thought it was pretty cool that Murdoch had this, his own atmosphere that he had to carry around on a vape attached to his uniform. Because
you'll see that with other benzites too. Like any aquatic race, you need to make modifications to life support.
yeah, absolutely. It's acknowledging that different alien races are going to require lots of different things. So I hope they continue to do that. It's interesting.
I love
They
Murdoch's
also-
visual design, like his makeup and then the
All of it.
apparatus and stuff. That was already great. And then when he spoke, he just talked like my neighbor, like
a
he's still very
nerd.
much like hello.
Yeah.
I was kind of
Prototype
expecting.
for Dr. Zoidberg.
Yeah,
it was well played. It was so good.
Yeah,
and I
for
really
people we got to get a picture for people who don't remember. It's kind of like this long Zoidbergy nose. I don't know how else to describe it. Sort of like a
There's-
little octopus on his face.
Yeah, like jowls that sort of flap up with the tentacles in it. Yeah. Also, I really like that they honored the strange benzite sort of hand gesture. Right away, they like as soon as Wesley saw him, they sort of touched their hands together and shook them a little bit, which I know humans have never really done, and I think that's been done away with. But it's great that they honor the benzite tradition.
Well, and that's also like I guess it's a foreshadowing of Wesley's awareness of culture, right? For
Right,
what happens
right.
later on.
That's
Oh, that's why they gave such bad handshakes. That's not a thing anymore. Huh. Okay.
that's the
interesting.
joke that I was making.
Shut up. I was like, I don't remember that unusual. Wait a minute. He's doing comedies.
No,
I gotta go.
I'm not.
I gotta go. No, it was good. It was funny. I gotta go.
But overall, I really like these sort of test trope episodes because it's a good way to sort of check in with the values of the series as a whole of like, this is what we're looking for in our storytelling. This is what we're looking for in our characters. And we also get this nugget of like Wesley backstory and in extension, Dr. Crusher and Picard backstory as well.
I'm not ready to talk about the point of the episode at which I cried. Let's talk about what do you guys think of TAC Officer Chan? Did I say that right? What's a TAC officer?
Tactical, probably.
I'm not
that
sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, maybe something with the command, like, or with the academy, like.
He's pretty
teachers.
fierce and pretty type A. He's all
Very
about
much-
the rules. He's like, you call it a psych test. I call it a psychological evaluation based on behaviors. I guess you could call it a psych test.
Well, I think
I
he's
liked
trying to
that.
like remind them that, hey, you're not supposed to overthink it or like prepare for it, but they do tell them what it is, so they know to
Mhm.
expect something, I guess.
You ruin the test if you know whatever we do is a test.
Yeah.
We're supposed to fake you out and scare you. Don't ruin
Yeah.
our fun.
Well, the real question was, so what then? That cultural test that happened with the big boy. What was his species name? The one with the hand flap.
Oh, right. Oh, I don't
I
remember.
got you. It's the Zoldan test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you mean when he said things like, you blocked my path, you Bulgarian sludge rat?
Yeah.
Yep. And,
Will you bleep that, please?
Lots,
Yeah.
lots of, like, got real feisty.
That guy was
So-
big, like
Yeah.
way bigger than Wesley. And so when Wesley stood up to him, I was like, "Holy shit, Wesley's gonna die."
Yeah, to recap, they bump in the hallway
Mhm.
and Wesley apologizes. This Zoldan person who looks like just a regular surfer dude, but with a webbed thumb.
Right.
And,
He didn't have a surfer's body.
well, yeah, sure he did.
Yeah, a surfer's hand.
Surfer's hand. And then TAC Officer Chan walks up and is like, what's going on here? And Wesley just steps up in his face and he says, come at me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I love what his description was. Zoldans are infuriated by courtesy. They view it as a sign of phony social behavior designed to cover true feelings. And I was like, I want to be a Zoldan.
Yeah. So a fun thing, like, I think this is one of the areas that Star Trek likes to explore because it's easy to do without makeup. And it's that challenge of social norms and what it might mean to another culture or another entire race. This is not going to be the first, or this is not the last time that we'll see the sort of argumentative behavior of a whole species seen as like, this is just how you talk to them. Specifically, we'll run into Tellarites, and it's just kind of known as like the trick of like, to talk to a Tellarite, you got to be kind of mean back at them or they won't respect you. Same with Klingons. we learn time and time again, if you prove your warrior spirit or prove how brave you are, then you're on their level with them in some sort of way. So this is a sort of way to judge cadets' ability to adapt to a social norm that might seem outside of their species, but Wesley just happens to have the correct knowledge and shows it very well.
Not because it just comes easy to him. It's because he studies.
Sure, if he weren't so cute.
Yeah, and Murdoch says, wow, I wouldn't have passed that test. But really, it seems like he was also being tested. He was there and could have intervened and reacted. I think he failed that test. I think those points should have counted against him.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because when you're on a starship, it's not just your actions, it's how you support other members of your crew and what you do. And in this case, if he's saying he would have failed, he might have tried to calm Wesley down or say like, hey, we don't need to be so angry. But instead, he stepped back and assessed the situation and moved forward. So I think that one of the cool things about this and these sort of tests is that everybody's being tested, but in a different way. There are different wind conditions. How about that?
I understand that terminology.
Okay,
yeah.
Speaking of Murdoch, that's a name I would name an NPC.
It is. And to talk about Tech Officer Chang too, not only the set of the Academy, but also this character very much reminded me of like old Trek, specifically Hikaru Sulu, which was a main character played by George Takei. He had that sort of demeanor that's
his
serious,
voice was very
playful.
similar to George Takei.
And I think all of that was probably a deliberate nod of some sort.
Very cool. Now, you mentioned the behavior of Klingons, and there's a scene that we're already sort of past in our timeline of the episode, but that was really significant and also is Jake's Zoom background at the moment. The holodeck scene when Wesley is sort of contemplating, I guess he has an hour to kill so he can go back to the ship.
So he decides to sit in an empty holodeck. It could be anywhere.
Well, he's deciding which memory he wants to replay so he can prepare for a psych test. And he doesn't know what makes him fearful the most. And so maybe we should mention that we're recording this during a week of protests, and hopefully these protests continue for Black Lives Matter and for, George Floyd. And it just really struck a chord for me to watch Worf and the things that he says in that scene when he comes in and is talking about his fear, and that his fear, it's very difficult for him to depend on anyone for anything, especially for his life. And I was like, life of a black man, preach.
This was the first time this made me tear up. Not only from that perspective, but also just as a lesson as the character growth too, of, a lot of these Trek viewers are coming in with the mentality of like, it's weird they have an enemy on the bridge now. They've got a Klingon. Those were the bad guys. It's weird. And now we're peeling back those layers and seeing that there is this humanity to Worf underneath that like tough exterior. And I think that's needed, especially with a character like Worf, who's just hard-edged the whole time.
This is also interesting that because there's no enemies in this episode, there's like no real adversary. Now I know that Remick obviously is like a hostile presence on the episode, but like everybody's technically all on the same side here, and like that's an interesting dynamic that keeps changing as well. They don't just always have a monster of the week to always deal with. They're like you said, they're testing tropes.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
The other, while you bring that up, with the other trope that's going on with that A-plot is what you could call a clip show, where you're basically reviewing the season so far, but they call it that because they will show flashbacks. And
Wait, you mean like intergalactic cable?
Yeah.
No. Well, Intergalactic Cable's like a montage show of different short ideas, whereas like
clip episode.
Right. But clip episodes are like recaps of other things that have happened. But I thought this was way better than a clip episode, because I actually detest clip episodes. And this was so much better because they're following a continuity of what they've done already. And I really appreciated that. One quick note on this. This is actually the first episode where Gene Roddenberry was not the showrunner. Maurice Hurley took over the job, and Hurley was concerned that the show's writing process had stalled under Roddenberry's leadership. So he personally paid for a holiday for Roddenberry and Majel
Majel Barrett, yeah.
Majel Barrett, his wife, on the understanding that he would take over while they're gone. And upon his eventual return, Roddenberry opted to leave Hurley in charge of the writing staff.
Wow, that's really cool. What a cool fact.
Well,
It's
I also noticed
interesting. You mentioned it has a continuity of the overall plot, and what we get into finally when we find out, in this sort of A plot, that the Admiral was really trying to hire Picard away to work at the Academy. That's like a big overarching this mega plot, because he says someone is trying to destroy Starfleet and I don't know who this adversary is, which is really, really interesting, because that could be written out for a long, long time.
Well, it will get revisited. I won't spoil anything for you, but yeah, but it's interesting because the Admiral alludes to something's going on and I need people close to me, and so all we know as an audience at this point is that he's trying to maneuver Picard into a political position, and Picard says no. So that's kind of all the seeds that have been planted at this point. I thought it was kind of weird how neither of them would specify what they were looking for. That was like a weird way of just justifying them being around for 45 minutes. They didn't even have a fake reason, which I was kind of perplexed by.
They kind of had a fake reason, which is your starship was stolen a couple times. You lost control of it in various episodes. So what's that about?
I loved Geordi's reaction to that, because when he was being interrogated, Geordi kind of looks at him, and I would imagine what LeVar Burton would be saying is, we have this ship taken over every other episode. How is this surprising? We've lost control of this thing constantly. In fact, some guys just jacked it from Space Dock 2 episodes ago. Why aren't you investigating that?
Don't even look up Q.
Oh man, I love when he's interviewing everyone on the ship, and then he talks to Data, and he says. I think that there's a lie in your log, and you're an android. You're not allowed to lie to me. Tell me the truth. And he goes, well, there's nothing wrong with the captain, and there's nothing wrong with the log. So I think what's wrong is your premise.
Right. And I love that he didn't say something with you. He says your premise. And it's the most objective way of no, you're just looking at this wrong.
He said something
this is
about
the data.
I can't remember what his words were, but Remick says something about that's not acceptable. He's like, well, even if it's not acceptable, it's the truth.
It's the truth. Yeah, exactly.
And it's so important to have a source of truth. I mean, to make it back a topical and whatnot. I mean, we're all in this very weird space, which is why it's fun to escape with something like this project we're doing here. But just the idea that there is an arbiter of truth. There is one set of facts that exist in this android, if we could just get to it. In real life, we don't have an android. And so, don't you wish there was a Data on every corner to tell you objectively what is happening?
Yeah.
No, sometimes we have to have a lieutenant commander come in and boss us around and without authority. That's bullshit.
I guess. But I will say I loved the cutting of that sequence with the swivel monitor and the different interviewee.
That was so good.
It was very well edited and fun to watch.
Yeah, I kept getting surprised by it. When the first one happened, I was like, oh, that was cool. And I was writing the note, it happened again.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. And then, like you said, this is a good way to do a clip show. And I think what you were mentioning, Becca, this is sort of the first time that we've seen those isolated Monster of the Week incidents sort of come together as an umbrella plot of these are the voyages of the USS Enterprise, and that's all one thing. It's not isolated incidents. And this is the first time that we've seen all of this sort of come together and get an introduction of it's not done. There's an overarching plot that's going to happen. Keep watching and watch closely. Another sort of cool thing that I think they did with that for people that are watching closely is that the test that Wesley and the cadets do, or the cadet hopefuls are trying to do, deal with the antimatter and matter ratio in the chamber for the engines.
It's always 1-to-1.
It's always 1-to-1. And the thing that goes wrong in the shuttle that the kid takes to go run away is that he has the ratio wrong. So he was the candidate that
you couldn't remember this one ratio? 1-to-1?
But he was the candidate that would have gone in and failed that test, and they're proving that out in the field of what they're doing to test these candidates is legitimate. These are skills that they're going to need if they want to take a shuttle and run away.
Oh, Xander,
Or
great little
command.
Easter egg. That is awesome that you picked that out. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And we should talk about Picard's heroic savior of that boy named Jake. No relation.
Picard is so good in this episode.
Yeah. What he says is, you've taken this shuttle, you're running away, it's going to crash into a planet, turn it straight towards the planet, go full speed because your engine's off, and you're going to rev the engine and start it from a running start. But if you're tilted towards the planet, and Picard doesn't explain it, he's just like, no, it's going to work, trust me. When you're going down, you can skim off the top of the atmosphere and not burn up because you'll be able to start your engine right at the right time. And nails it.
This is like the second Picard maneuver.
Yeah, bouncing, like boing, bounce off the atmosphere. But what we see now is more of Picard's command style, especially when the interrogator guy is there and is in the way of like, you need to save this child, and he's like, move, this is happening. And you can see the communication between the officers. I need suggestions.
Is the worst.
Remick is the worst.
In the middle of a situation, he stands in front of Picard, blocks the screen, and goes, this is going to be on you, buddy. Like,
yeah.
Get the fuck out of the way.
Right? But we have seen this command style reflected in the crew, especially towards impressionable crew members, in that we've seen Data say, I can't speak right now. I'm dealing with this issue. Do not come in here. And then comes back out and says, these are the things that I was doing.
Too much to explain? Was that what
too
it
much
was?
When he's dancing away from a laser trying to kill him?
So we see that we're creating capable officers, and it's all under the leadership of Picard, who's teaching them to lead for themselves, whether that's taking in their anger and reacting to a situation a certain way, or peeling away an exterior hard shell and coming to terms with the soft emotions inside. I love this show so much.
Well, Remick really loves it too, because later on he's being interviewed and he says, sir, the only flaws I could see is that sometimes they're too congenial with one another because teamwork, and also a feeling of family. And also, I'm a complete kiss ass, but Picard, when I'm done with this job, I want to come work on the Enterprise. Like, dude, you got in my way. You were annoying to everyone. No way you're coming to be part of this family. Never gonna happen.
Yes. This is great, but it also builds in this baked-in excuse that these writers and this series had to deal with in this reboot, in that we have seen in the early episodes a very militant Enterprise. We saw them take very strong command structure and say, this is how it goes. No children on the bridge. And then slowly they've been chipping away at that. And now we see that the Enterprise, this iteration, is the exception to the rule. Every other starship is very much working like clockwork and very much officers and doing things like this. But the Enterprise D, this Enterprise, is functioning more like a family. And we will be able to see that in the writing style moving forward. And they can point to this moment to fans who are like, this isn't Star Trek anymore. This is the feel-good show, but in space. And they're like, listen, we're doing something different. And we already explained it. And you know who you sound like? You sound like this guy.
Well,
we know you want to be on the ship anyway.
It's clearly a sitcom because one of the kids took the car out of the garage without permission, and then we had to take it down, right?
Totally true. Classic sitcom trope.
The runaway, yeah.
Hey, you know what? I think Picard just couldn't have let that charade continue.
I loved it. And also,
go ahead.
Sorry, this speech between Picard and Wesley, when Wesley returns from this test with some bad news and is really beating himself up over it because everybody on the ship made such a big deal about him being so young, getting accepted into this test. He's already an acting ensign. Everyone's like, you've got this. You don't need to worry about anything. And yet he failed. And I think this is a theme that we will hear from Picard over and over again, and the theme of the show. It's possible to do everything correctly and still fail.
I loved that he failed. Yeah. I think that's great. That's a great message for sure.
Yeah.
It's another relevant topical message that I won't start. Okay.
I'm sincerely still confused why Mordok got it. Like, just because Mordock was more experienced at taking the test?
I think that it is a fake test. The reason that Wesley didn't pass is because he's only taken it once, and I think points are cumulative of other times you've taken it. I think it's a load of crap, and it's just a trick. Of course, everyone fails their first time.
All right. Well, right into the Commandant's letter, San Francisco, California. We will put the address in the link. If you have any feedback to Starfleet Academy, you can write a letter.
We should talk about the psych test that we finally got to because it was really beautiful, the pep talk that Picard gave him. But you mentioned at the beginning of this episode how we learn a really important fact about Wesley's history and his family and his dad, which is the test he's given. He has to save people from a nitrogen explosion of some sort, and it's totally fake, and the whole time we're like, come on, this is the test, but the emotions are real, and whichever Starfleet teachers were jumping in to pretend they were dying horribly and couldn't feel their legs and were too terrified to move, really nailed it in there. Great acting here.
Do you think those two guys went back to a green room afterwards? Like, nice job, Bob. Nice job,
Nice
Steve.
job.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? They probably have to do it every year. Like they're the core ensemble of players.
So
for
which
the
scene
trauma.
is this? Is this the hydrogen one or the one where we're in the vacuum and about to be blown out into space?
I'm too scared to move.
Let's prepare for both just in case. So this is a specific test because it's for Wesley because this is the choice that Picard had to make, and this is why his father died, because Picard chose someone else. And this is also why earlier in the episode, our favorite Remick guy said said to Crusher, how do you feel about Picard? Because he killed your husband. Mm-hmm. Now we learn exactly why.
I kind of wish we'd gotten into
way.
that instead of it hinted at, because the details of what happened to Jack Crusher aren't really made available to us. I mean, we're told earlier in the seasons kind of that general thing, but like we don't know what Picard's choice was. We just know he was commanding the Stargazer when Jack Crusher died, right?
Yes, and I hear you, and I get that, but I also like this choice, and I like that, there's this ambiguity, because that's sort of what these traumatic stories become. They're like, I don't know exactly what happened, but this terrible thing happened, and these are sort of the parameters of it. And, I think it's a good representation of this sort of traumatic thing, especially when you have to work with each other day in and day out.
I think maybe instead of actually the details of it, is more important, like earlier in the episode, I want to know that Picard did make that choice, or there was a choice involved. Then that sets it up for the ending when Wesley does realize it, because Wesley realizes it without telling the audience what he's realizing.
Mm-hmm. With that little, Captain, someone.
Exactly.
I get it.
And then they have that beautiful touching moment, and the quote that I took away was, the only person you're truly competing against is yourself.
Right.
As on your own paper, people.
So true.
Right. Well, the other thing that I really wanted to bring up about the psych test is that I think part of me is of the mindset, these are young kids that have to go through this horror, like this traumatic thing that is personally designed for their horror. But on the flip side of that, with someone like Crusher, like Wesley Crusher coming into the academy, he's got baggage that surrounds him before he even steps foot into that building. People are going to judge hiring him or anything in the future with his placement based off of like, oh, this is the guy that had that traumatic thing that happened to him. And when you put someone through a psych eval like this, you can prove like with data that this person is either over this traumatic event or this is not how they will react in those cases. Therefore, they are safe to be on a starship. And so it's providing both this rehashing of this traumatic event, but also the proof of, resolution over it, or, what I mean? Like the ability to function beyond that in a crisis state.
But what happens if you know it's a test when you go back the second time?
Well, that's why it's going to be different the second time, and it's tailor-made for each of the students. So if they know that it's the test and they go back and it's the same thing, they might be testing for something else. And so there's like these layers that you can sort of peel back within the, test.
Fix all your traumas.
Yeah. Done.
Well, one more thing we got to mention is Picard dons a scant for the farewell dinner, and he
Ah!
looks so good in it. Just
So good.
when
I love a
Picard wears
scant.
It's scant with pants, a pants scant.
A pants scant, dress pants.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just have the note like Picard is so good, especially this episode. Picard is just great.
He really is. He's fantastic. Such a well-written character played by such an incredible actor. I really love this episode.
Yeah, it was fun. I initially was like a little frustrated with how unspecific the interrogation stuff was. I was like, why are we even listening to this guy just yell at people? But as it kind of became clear that there's more to it, and we can't quite reveal it yet, I was a little bit more intrigued. And I love that we've set it up a continuity now of like, hey, we've been on these adventures, and not everybody in Starfleet agrees with how we've handled them. So the debates that even we've had on the show, they're having right now. So I feel great about that.
Oh, and of course, he had the big decision to choose not to become Commandant of the Academy, because he said, no, I will not become Professor X for another 11 years.
So if anyone's keeping track of how many jobs Picard has turned down, just put another notch in that belt.
Yep.
Oh, well, speaking of things we were keeping track of, I think I said in an earlier episode I wanted to keep track of how many times someone transported away before they could shut it down. And I think this counts when Jake drove the shuttle out without permission.
Totally.
Also, what mechanical way could he automatically unbalance the engines that it's going to explode? Or what? No, he lost control. He lost power.
Hey, antimatter, okay? It's no
The
joke.
reaction, yeah.
There should be some safety mechanisms to not just instantly be able to do that.
Do you want the ratio to be 1 to 1 or 1 to 1,000? What do you think?
I guess he
Too
turned
much
on the
antimatter?
emergency. Yeah, he turned on the emergency thing, so maybe things went haywire. I'll give it
I
to
think
him.
that it's the scenario of we shouldn't have been that close to a planet when that happens. If it had just been like open space, it wouldn't have been a big old deal. But because he got caught in that,
him.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Our next episode, I've mistyped in my notes. I have it as Hardy of Glory, which I think it's actually Heart of Glory.
Maybe.
Or Party
Who
of
knows?
Glory.
Party of Glory this season on Fox. Worf's loyalties to Starfleet are tested when 3 fugitive Klingons arrive aboard the Enterprise. Ooh.
I'm ready for more Worf.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna get.
Yeah, you are.
We really actually haven't gotten into Worf very much yet.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised. I remember.
I'm ready to shift into Worf speed.
Yeah.
Fucking engage. That was it. You got it. Well done. You brought us in and you took us out. All right.
It's just because it started with Jake. I'm sorry.
The first line of that episode is Jake, and I actually paused it. Like, who's
what?
Because you can't see him. He's like in a crowd running.
Is it Will or Wesley? Does
Wesley. Yeah, Wesley's yelling it down the corridor.
Mr. W.
Yeah.
Well, friends on the YouTubes, thank you for watching this super secret Patreon recording video. We hope you're enjoying these, and we'll see you next week. How do I push a button? Here it is.